Hello Salesforce Ohana, Walters954 here. In this video, I'm going to be going over my study guide for the Salesforce Admin certification. This is arguably the hardest and most sought after certification. It's the one that you'll need to pretty much start your entire Salesforce career if you're starting from the ground up. There's definitely a really big learning curve when it comes to Salesforce, and the admin certification is where most people start with. I'll be going over all the resources that I use, and stick around to the end. I have a super secret tip to help those beginners out in learning Salesforce. Alright, so let's jump into this study guide. The first one that we have here, as always, is the exam guide. Make sure to read over everything that's in there, go through the exam outline, even just to glance over everything, and then you'll see down at the bottom in this blog post there's going to be a lot of resources and information on the exam guide and on the exam outline, so definitely check it out. And at least for right now, the exam is 105 minutes, 60 multiple choice questions, and you need to get at least a 65% or higher. This is a $200 charge for your first time and $100 for retakes. And you'll see once we get down into my test taking tips, don't stress about this. You will fail the first time. I failed the first time, and I'll get into my story a little bit later on as well. Alright, so my two most important study resources that I have here are the two Trailhead trail mixes that Salesforce has graciously prepared for us. So there's preparing for your admin certification and studying for your admin certification. These two trail mixes, I really recommend just doing them. If you're a beginner, just do them from start to finish. It's going to be a lot of reading. It's going to be a lot of going through things and not understanding everything. But the more time you spend in the system, the more you'll start to get it. I tell all of my mentees that Salesforce is not hard. It's complicated. It's a lot to take in, especially at the beginning. So definitely take your time and pace yourself. Next up, as always, you all know I love videos. Use videos to help break up your Trailhead learning process. So run through Trailheads maybe an hour a day. If you do get burnt out on some of the Trailhead modules, just spend some time watching videos. The more you learn and understand from other people on how things work inside of Salesforce and how people are building things, just how it works in general. Now that's a big piece of when you're first starting out, is just how Salesforce works. So take the time to watch other people and how they create objects, how they're setting up things, the ways that they get into the setup, let's say, for example, or how they create objects and their descriptions that they're writing, because you'll start to learn best practices and pick up on a lot of different things. You all know you shouldn't just listen to me. Definitely check out some of these other blogs. I almost always link out to Salesforce Ben because that's a site that I was using when I was first starting out. It was very helpful for me. I'm also shouting out Mason Frank. They have a pretty good blog post on some resources and some study items. If you're a person that learns more in a classroom setting or following along in some sort of guided process, go ahead and check out Mike Wheeler's courses. I have purchased them in the past for studying for different certifications. Do your research, understand what you're getting into when you sign up for courses, and if this is something that interests you, definitely check out Mike Wheeler's courses. I'd recommend the Udemy one, but you may have some other ones that can help walk you through the Salesforce Administrator exam. And then rounding it out, we always have the mock exams and the different flashcards that you can use. If you do not have experience, just don't even look at these. I was debating whether or not to put these on the study guide because I don't want people just trying to focus in on getting the questions right on the exams or going to the Quizlets and memorizing flashcards, because that's not going to help you in the end. I've interviewed many people for Salesforce positions, and I can tell instantly if they have experience in certain clouds or if they've just studied flashcards and tried to pass the exam. So you all probably know how I use the flashcards by now. I'll go on to them and try to recreate the scenarios in the questions. I almost never memorize the flashcards because a lot of times the answers are wrong. If this question is asking me, hey, how do I change the different search results that are showing up on the objects? Well, I'm going to spend the time, go through the setup, and change each and every one of these features and see if it yields the correct results that this is asking. In this particular case, I'm going to be changing the object search layout to change the different columns on the record. So it's very important. Never trust any of the answers that you see on these Quizlets. You'll get a lot of really good hands-on experience replicating those scenarios. Some key areas to focus on. This is really hard for me to pick because for a lot of you, Salesforce is going to be completely new. I may just want to put how Salesforce works in general as like the big key area to focus on. Understanding in the beginning, this is the hardest piece, is just to understand what Salesforce does because it's so elusive. It's out there, but you start to get an idea once you get into things how Salesforce actually works and things behind it. Once you start to get that idea, definitely look into sales process and objects and what those actually mean, how they flow across, how information goes from a lead to an account contact opportunity to opportunity line items, and that entire process of how they flow. And then the other area that's kind of foreign to a lot of people is user management. So profiles, roles, hierarchies, and just setting up users, what a user actually does, and how the different configuration aspects play into a user. So you'll have your different apps, your field level security, your record types, your page layouts. So understanding, hey, how does a user and their profile or their permissions tie back into me not being able to see a field on a particular layout? With all of that said, this is probably the most in-depth exam outline that I have done. There's going to be a lot of links on here to different resources and information based on the category that we are in. I would say as you're going along, as you're studying, if something pops up and you're like, oh, I don't know what this is, or I want to look into it further, check my exam outline, see if there's a link for it, and try to do some additional research there. For all of the sections that are 10% and higher, definitely take some time to just read over whatever content that I have in here. And then, as always, my exam tips. So if you have no experience in Salesforce whatsoever and you're trying to go for this exam, I would say it's going to take 6 months. That's with steady studying, maybe a couple hours a week. You'll start to pick up on things. And that's not to say that people haven't done it in a month, in a week. But I would say if you're starting from nothing, wanting to get into the Salesforce world, 6 months is a good time to shoot for. And definitely don't try to burn yourself out with it. You can see my other skills there. So 3 months if you have some experience, and then 2 to 3 weeks if you have years of experience. In my case, I was working in the Salesforce ecosystem for about maybe a year and a half before I took the admin exam. I did pass it the first time, but that's not without failing the developer exam the first time. Book your exam ahead of time. If I'm studying for something like this, I'll book mine maybe a month out just so that I have the date and I'm working towards a goal. The day before the exam, sleep well. Don't spend all night trying to study flashcards. Just go to bed. You either know it or you don't by that time. And then finally, don't stress about passing the first time. Like I said, I failed the developer exam and I've failed multiple exams. One of the things that I recommend for all of my mentees to do is to Salesforce your life. What this means is take some aspect of your life and turn it into a Salesforce project. For example, one of the first projects that I did was a movie review. I built a Salesforce app that every time I watched a movie, I could open up the Salesforce mobile app and quickly do a review of it, giving it a 1 to 5 number rating, a quick blurb about the movie, and some other information. This is something that I built from scratch in my own test org, and it was a really great hands-on learning project. Do some of the trailhead projects to spark some ideas for your own Salesforce personal projects. Some other examples that I have is a recipe rotation. Build some sort of app that automatically selects a new recipe for the week that you're going to be using. Another good one is to track your job hunt. So use various Salesforce objects to track your job hunting process, people you talk to, companies you apply for, your interviewing process. This is what Salesforce excels at, and this is going to give you a lot of really good hands-on experience and let you understand how Salesforce works. Thank you all so much for watching. If this video was helpful, make sure to like and subscribe. If you have additional study resources that you think would be helpful for others, definitely leave them in the comments down below and I'll add them to the blog. I'm Walters954, and remember, I believe in you.